Hi, my name is Suzanne and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am a Norwegian knitter and sewer and I have been knitting and sewing for quite a few years. Knitting I learned how to do at school and I picked it back up in my early 20s and again later in my 20s. And sewing is something I've been doing on and off for 7 years-ish. I did learn when I was a kid, but didn't pick it back up until my early 20s. Knitting is one of the things that I find the most relaxing. It's what I do when I have a spare moment or spare time in the evening. One of the things that I enjoy doing in my spare time, except for knitting and sewing, is watching what other people are making and seeing what their thoughts around their projects. So I thought I would join the chat and share my thoughts around the projects that I'm working on. So I thought I'd start with a knitting podcast, and I'm going to stick with the traditional way where I show you my finished objects, some current projects and some future plans. I'm finding it slightly odd talking into a camera, so please bear with me, and I really appreciate your support on my channel, so if you could give it a thumbs up and potentially even subscribe, it would mean a lot to me. So if you want to follow along, please do, and grab yourself a drink of some sort. It's currently slightly sunny outside, so I have switched over to an iced Americano rather than a hot coffee, because summer is coming. So most of the things that I have been knitting has been gifts for other people, and one of my biggest gift projects was a jumper I knitted 2 years ago for my boyfriend, and it is one of my absolute favourite knitting projects I've done so far. It is the Hanstholm, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Hanstholm sweater by PetiteKnit. So it's a sweater, it's a male sweater that is knitted top down in the round with raglan increases. So the neckband is knitted in a 1x1 rib before it's knitted down, and you start knitting the raglan increases along with the short rows on the back. So it was a very straightforward knit. It is on 4mm needles in a DK wet yarn. I used Drops Lima in a charcoal colour. Let me double check what colour that was. In the colour 0519. It's this very beautiful charcoal colour, and it almost has this kind of like a little bit of a marbling effect. So where there's some lighter and darker greys coming through. It was the first time I ever knitted with Drops yarn, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but it is absolutely beautifully soft. It is 60% wool and 65% wool and 35% alpaca. It isn't itchy at all, and it has been worn a lot, and I think the more you wear it, the softer it gets. Because it's quite a soft wool, it does tend to pill a fair bit. I don't know if you can see it around the neckline here, but I do get my wool comb out quite regularly to give it a bit of a brush to keep it nice. One of the things that I do enjoy doing with the knitwear I make is taking care of it. I know some people do find it a bit boring, but I always think it's so nice that when people wear the things you make, that it looks pristine or beautiful. So when it does start to pill, I do tend to get the brush out quite easily. Because it is a very standard crew neck raglan, I just find the fit of it really nicely, and I do tend to steal it quite a lot of my boyfriend. It is just one of my absolute favourite knitted jumpers, and I just think it's so easy to wear. The crew neck is really nice and the length is perfect for me, and that is one of my bugbears about this project, is that I didn't knit it long enough for my boyfriend. It's fine, but I do think like adding an extra 5 centimeters or something would make it perfect. Another thing about this project is that the neckline has stretched a bit, so one of the things that is on my to-do list is to put a elastic in the neckline to keep the shape nice. I believe that's one of the things that PetiteKnit does recommend with a lot of her projects, to keep the necklines nice, just adding some elastic, and I have done that to a few of my jumpers. Because I do tend to grab the jumper, I have considered knitting myself one in a slightly different colour. But I do have the, I have knitted myself the PetiteKnit Louisiana sweater, which is quite similar. It's got high 1x1 rib, it's got the raglan increases, and it's got quite a wide bell sleeve, so it's slightly more embellished than a standard crew neck. And even though I do tend to wear that one quite a lot, I would just love a absolute throw it over anything crew neck in my knitted wardrobe. So yeah, even though this is my boyfriend's, I really want my own one. I don't know if you can see it here, but I have put a red thread in the neck, even though it has short rows in the back, and when I hold the jumper up like this, you can see that the front neckline is lower than the back. My boyfriend tends to put it on whichever way he grabs it, so putting a little thread in the back in a different colour is a great way to just mark which way is the front and which way is the back without actually having to put a label in. So yeah. One of the things that I really loved about knitting this jumper was the combination of 4mm needles and the DK weight yarn. It was such a satisfying knit, and even though it did take a while, it didn't feel like I wasn't moving forward. Every time I picked up the jumper you could see the progress. So it was just really nice. I would recommend knitting this one and one for yourself if you don't want to knit one for other people. PetiteKnit probably has some other jumpers which are standard crew neck raglan for women, but one of the things that I do like about this is that it's not held together with a mohair or a kid silk like a lot of patterns are at the moment. That's very popular. But yeah, it's just a really nice, standard, easy to wear jumper. My second of 3 finished projects I'm going to show you today is the Camisole number 4 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. And it's a V-neck strappy spaghetti strap I-cord camisole with a broken rib. It is knitted top down with 3.5mm needles, and the V's at the front and at the back are knitted in the flat before everything's joined and knitted in the round all the way down, and then at the end you add the I-cord spaghetti straps. I knitted mine in one of the recommended yarns, which was Pure Silk by Knitting for Olive, and the colour I chose was the poppy blue. I was immediately drawn towards the colour. I just love how vibrant it is and how nice the colour is. I did start this last September, just at the end of the summer, and I did lose a bit of motivation when I was knitting it because the nice weather had gone. So I finished it this January, and I have only worn it a few times since. Generally the weather hasn't been good enough. But one of the things that I am a bit worried about is how low the V-neck goes. When I knitted the I-cord straps, I did hang it up, wash it, block it and hang it up with a peg on the end on a hanger to make sure that the I-cord wouldn't stretch too much before I sewed it together at the end. However, I do think I knitted them a little bit too long, so I think what I might do is cut the I-cord here and take off a bit of length. But before I do that, I'm going to wear it a few times over the summer to see if the V-neck actually is okay, the length, because I think the hotter and sunnier it gets outside, and when you're wearing bikinis and going to the beach, I think this kind of, the length of the V-neck would be fine, though I do prefer a slightly more conservative V-neck. I also didn't want the top to be too fitted, so I was between two sizes and I decided to size up when knitting it, and that could contribute to the V-neck being slightly lower than I wanted it. But I am so excited to wear it this summer. I just absolutely love the colour. The drape is just stunning. Look, so nice. It's just so nice. I think the yarn and the broken rib is just stunning, and I am really looking forward to wearing it over the summer. My third finished project that I'm going to show you is this mood beanie by spektakelstrik. It's a Danish knitwear designer, I believe, again like PetiteKnit and My Favourite Knitwear. And the reason I have chosen to put this in my finished objects is because this was a Christmas gift this year for my boyfriend, who had chosen the pattern and the colours himself. It's knitted in panilla from Filcolana, which is 100% merino wool, and he has been wearing it quite literally every day since I finished it. So I had to pry it off him to show you. So I do think it is one of my most successful knits compared to how many wears it's gotten, and so yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it. I did end up knitting this a few times and ripping it back, because I did start off knitting it with a different type of yarn. I can see there's been some pilling, so I'm just picking up the worst bits. But yeah, I did start knitting this with a different type of yarn, and it was a quite stretchy super wash. And I just couldn't get the gauge right on the colour work, so on the second time I ripped it back with the different yarn, I decided to change the yarn, and it knitted up really well. This was actually my first colour work project ever. I've always been a bit worried about it because of the gauge and having to keep all the floats tidy, and always worried that it would be too tight where the colour work is. But I'm actually really pleased with how the floats turned out and how neat everything is looking. It's pilling on the on the inside, almost needing to get my wool comb out. But yeah, so I'm super pleased with this. I believe it was knitted on 3.5mm needles, and the first bit here, which is before you knit the colour work, was knitted on a 3mm needle. But it was a super fun project to knit. It honestly just flew by once you got into the colour work, and yeah, it's probably the most worn knit I've ever made, so I had to make it into the finished project. I also believe that when you buy the pattern, a part of the proceeds go to a charity, women's charity in Denmark. I think it's helping mothers. So it's also nice to knit something that you feel is giving back. So moving on to my current projects, I am currently working on the April cardigan by PetiteKnit. It's a cardigan knitted top down with kind of a saddle, mini saddle set in sleeve construction, which ends in a nice raglan shape at the bottom. It is slightly smaller than PetiteKnit's usual designs, which tend to have a larger ease. This one I believe is 6 to 8 centimeters larger than your bust size. I'm knitting mine in a very similar colour to the one PetiteKnit did her sample in, but I'm knitting mine in Drops, Flora and the Kid Silk in the colour 13 and 8. The Drops Flora is 65% wool and 35% alpaca. It's very, very soft, and the Kid Silk is giving this a slight variegated look with a bit of almost like a light blue or white, some streaks going through, which is giving this very nice detail. The reason I went for the same or similar colour to the one PetiteKnit did her sample in was just I fell in love with the colour. I do really like blues, as most of my project so far has been blue. So I decided to just go for it. I decided to just go for a similar colour. I ended up knitting 2 test swatches for this cardigan, and I am a little bit of a tight knitter, so I ended up having to size up in the needle size to a 4.5mm needle. The original pattern calls for a 4mm needle, and I did my rib 1x1 ribbing at the bottom, and will do the same on the arms on a 4mm needle rather than a 3.5, which the pattern calls for. I do want to keep the cardigan a bit cropped because we're coming into the spring and summer months, and I just think it will look really nice with a skirt or just as a throw over jacket for the summer. So I have finished the body, and I did a, what's it called? Italian bind off at the bottom, and I started knitting on one of the sleeves, and I got to the stage where I need to change to a larger needle so I can do the magic loop technique, and then I need to pick up the stitches for the button band. Now I've seen quite a lot of people online having picked up the button band, not doing a 1x1 rib but a double knitted button band like the champagne cardigan that PetiteKnit has. And I have considered it, but I think I'm going to go with what the original pattern says, which is the 1x1 rib. And the reason for that is that I quite like the whimsical look it gives. It's less structured, it's a bit more floaty, it's a bit summery, and I just think it will look really nice in this colour. I do think if I was doing it for a winter piece and I was coming up to winter and did it in a bit of a darker colour, I do think I might seriously consider the double knitted button band. I am still debating on which buttons to go for. I don't think I'm going to go for the bling buttons that PetiteKnit has, and one of the things that I think I also might do is make the buttonholes a little bit smaller so I can have smaller buttons. I am thinking maybe like a mother of pearl type button, which I think would look really nice with the variegated kid silk that's going through here with all the lighter streaks in the fabric. My second current project I'm going to show you is the June top by PetiteKnit. I have finished the body and picked up for one of the straps here, and all that's really left is picking up for the second front strap and the back to knit the back straps. It is a bottom up constructed scoop neck with I-cord edging around the neck, armholes and the bottom. I did find knitting from the bottom up a little bit challenging because you don't know how long you're going to knit the top for, so it's really hard to gauge the length when you can't try on the project. PetiteKnit did have a suggestion there and to do the Judy's magic cast on, so you could extend the length of the bottom later on, but I was in a bit of a hurry when I casted it on and decided to just gauge it and hope for the best. But I do think it's going to work out fine. It's going to be a nice length, and I think what I might do is crop the length of the straps a little bit so that the top will sit a little bit higher on my neckline rather than being too plungy. It is knitted on a 4mm needle, and I decided to go for one of the recommended yarns, which is Sanna's Garn Mandarin Petite, I think, and it is Mandarin Natural, and it is in the colourway 1012. So it's like an off-white, almost oat colour. I think it's going to be really nice, a really basic staple which just goes with everything. So I'm very much looking forward to finishing that and wearing it this summer. So I'm at that part of the podcast where I am going to talk about my future plans. I have quite a lot of things that I would love to knit, but at the moment I only have one project that is nearly in the works, and that is the Summery cardigan by Knit. And it is a cardigan knitted top down with moss stitch and cables on the front. After having picked up the April cardigan by PetiteKnit a few weeks ago, I've loved knitting the cardigan, and I immediately wanted to cast on another one. So I have done a little swatch for the cardigan, and the pattern says that it's knitted on a 5.5mm needle or a 6mm needle, depending on the yarn you use. So they have two recommended yarns. I have this absolutely gorgeous variegated green yarn in my stash from Camisole, and it's the Caesar. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And it is 60% wool, 40% alpaca, and it is beautiful. Like, it's so soft, and it's got this beautiful variegated green colour, which I just think will look absolutely stunning in the April cardigan, going down the cables at the front. So I'm really looking forward to knitting it. I did knit up this swatch on a 7mm needles after having done some calculations on the yarn I'm using, but I think I'm going to knit another sample in a 6mm needle or a 5.5mm needle, because it is quite stretchy and it ended up being a fair bit bigger than I thought it would. So the cardigan is going on my needles any day now. As soon as I knit up another swatch and have washed and blocked that, the cardigan will go on my needles. So I am very, very excited because I think it will be a really nice throw over jacket for the summer. I think I'm going to go with a slightly cropped version of the cardigan just because I think it will look really nice hitting high-waisted jeans or a skirt on the waistline or just below the waistline. So I think that is the plan for now. I also have quite a lot of t-shirts in mind that I want to knit this year because I've never actually knitted a t-shirt. I've knitted quite a lot of strappy tops and a lot of jumpers, but never a t-shirt. So I'm currently considering the Friday tee by PetiteKnit, the Poppy tee by PetiteKnit, any t-shirt by Sarah Nordlund because they're all stunning. The only thing I'm a bit worried about is the intricacy of some of her patterns and getting it done by the summer or before the summer ends, and having time to knit it and wear it this summer. I'm also considering tee number 1 by my favourite knitwear, but if anyone has any really nice t-shirt recommendations that I can knit up, I would love to hear your thoughts, because that's on my knitting list this year, and hopefully before the summer so I can wear it soon. So depending on what I do go for, I have some yarn in my stash that I would love to use for this project, and I will show you. And depending on the project, I do have some yarns in my stash that I want to use for a t-shirt. The first one is the Summery by Pickles, which is a Norwegian brand. It is 55% lamb's wool and 45% ecological cotton in this beautiful kind of wheat colour. It is shade DSO19, and I have the same wool in a blue, like this baby blue, which I think is really nice. That is shade DSO21. So one of these would be used for the t-shirt, or I have this very beautiful, very soft ecological cotton from JH Design, which I also believe is a Norwegian brand. I think they're from northern Norway, but I'm not 100% sure. It's the Sval, which is 85% ecological cotton and 15% baby alpaca. Super soft, and it's this very nice kind of beige colour. So depending on the project, I will most likely use one of these 3 yarns, because I am trying to use up some of my stash. And these yarns were bought with summer tops in mind. I think that might be all for now. If you did make it to the end, thank you so much for watching. I really had a really good time doing this. I was a bit nervous in the beginning, but I think I got there in the end. So I would love to hear any of your comments on any of the things that I've made, or just say hi. And if you want to give this video a thumbs up to support me, or maybe even give me a follow, I would really appreciate that. So thank you so much for watching, and maybe I will see you again. Bye!